Hey, Rose, welcome to the Sacred Remembering podcast. So good to have you here.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me. Thrilled to be here.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to read your bio and then we'll jump right in. Rose Kaz is the founder of the LBI, which stands for Lady Boss International Backstage Pass, the newest and hottest social media built together by femme thought leaders and industry disruptors. She is successfully pivoting her production company to flow into a new way of leadership in the hybrid world of online and in-person conversations about doing business differently. Definitely check out the LBI platform online on Instagram and check out all of the amazing interviews that Rose is doing. Rose leads those conversations about money, sex, and politics that encourage other business activists to do the same in the structure of our wealth and health growing endeavors. She comes from a background of photo and video production, serving women-forward companies. You can learn more about Rose Kaz and the LBI Backstage Pass at lbibackstagepass.com. And I will add that Rose is one of the smartest women that I know. And and the most heartfelt women that I know. And so it has been an absolute pleasure to watch, what you're doing for the last year and a half and know you a little bit longer than that. Rose took my first set of entrepreneurial photos when I ventured out of being a school principal and into this world. And so known you for a couple of years. Amazing to have you here on this platform. Thank you for all you're doing and for the leadership among women that you are exemplifying right now. So I really look forward to this conversation. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for having me. And thank you for that kind introduction, though I wrote the words. It's always nice to hear other people say it with like anecdotes and fervor and just the actual support of what we need to move forward in these new leadership ways. So thank you. Thank you.
Yes, you're so welcome. I know, like when you write the bio with all of the words that you hope to, have impact. And then someone's like, no, actually, let me lift this woman up.
Or, yeah, I was like tearing up. I'm like, oh, damn, I am doing that. Shit, girl. Okay.
Yes. So let's recognize that. And so thanks for being here. And I think I got to see you last week in person here in Asheville, and you're the speaker at Women in Wine. And I've had these moments too, where you like prepare what you're going to say, and then you're like, fuck it. And you throw it out. And you had one of those moments.
Oh yeah.
And just like came from the heart. And so thank you. And I think that's where I want to start. This is what's on your heart? Like, what are you passionate about right now? Because we can talk about all the things we produce or the things that we do, but really what I'd like to start this with is what are you caring about right now?
Thank you for that. So yeah, that heartfelt, I was all prepared with all my notes and my slides, and it was like I felt tired and I felt overwhelmed. And this was even with the most recent SCOTUS ruling of last Friday with women's reproductive rights. This was the week of, right? And so what I feel most passionate about right now is like being where we are in the moment, knowing that there is a lot of feels and there's a lot of extreme mansplaining, and just the patriarchy is ripe for its rudeness. And that's all I'm going to say about that. And those of us who feel the effects of it in ways that are less than kind or less than helpful, or make us feel small, or make us feel like we can't be our biggest, best lady boss selves, it becomes hard to keep going forward. And so last week, all of those feels, and now this week, you can see where, if for those catching the vid, like I'm out in nature. I'm like, this is Camp Counselor Rose right now. And so I'm in charge of nobody here, by the way, except for what I'm doing on the internet. It's like the holy both and, right? Like I'm really trying to keep going forward with this mission because I know that we need safe places, both on the internet and in real life, as women thought leaders, as industry disruptors, as business activists, to do things differently. And the thing I've been realizing the last week or so, and probably even before the last week or so, to be honest, is that it is so fucking hard. And it is not my job. Like I did not break this, but I will help fix it. Right. Yeah. And granted, I look as a white woman, right? I have privilege as a result of that. And so what have I been able to do in the last year and a half with that privilege to make this platform exist, so that little by little, women like you and other femme forward leaders are able to move the needle and affect progress.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, let's, talk about what's real for just a minute more. Like, we don't want to like bitch and complain, and we want to acknowledge. And I was having a conversation. I'm trying to have a lot of really awesome conversations with my 13-year-old right now, because he is he's a projector in human design. He's got a lot of opinions, and I'm like, let's talk about what's going on in the world. Young man who's going to grow up to be an older white man. And so I was, where was I going with that? Sorry. I was asking him about Roe versus Wade. And I was asking him about, like, women's energy. Hang on. I have to go back, because it's like, I just lost what I was saying. It's so weird.
No problem.
That like never happens on the podcast, or it does, and I just like pick something else up. But anyway, let's go back.
Okay. Take two.
Like, what just happened? I know. I was like, maybe my son was like, don't talk about me on your podcast, Mom. Like, I don't know what just happened.
You're like, the idea was there. That has been happening to me, though. That has actually been happening to me. And I, like, a lot of times that'll happen to me on my period, where I'm like, whoa, thought just like period brain, right? And I know that mamas who've had babies are like mama brain, right? Like, maybe it's just busy brain. I don't know. But my thalamus is like, girl, you need a break. You're thinking too hard about saving all the damn whales. Like,
well, I think that's what just happened, because I was like, wait, I don't want to bitch, but I want to go back. And then I got like stopped. You know what I mean? I was like, stop.
You may not go there.
You may not go there. Okay. So we may not go there. So yeah, whatever I was going to say about the little man, I don't know, maybe it'll come back, but, yeah, this is so weird, Rose. Take it away. Take us somewhere else.
Well, so just ripping off of the, like, always being 100 and being honest with ourselves where we're at individually and of the collective. Like, I also am a manifestor generator. Like, I am like out there, I have opinions, and like, don't tread on me. Don't fuck with me. Don't mansplain me.
Yeah.
Excuse my French. Sorry.
Do it.
I'm learning the new rules of FCC. So I'm learning where I can drop the F-bomb and not, but I'm a fiery personality. Right. And I was raised in a house that was like, if you could tune it down. And I'm like, I don't know how to tune it down. Right. And so I've now, just in this last epoch of my life, realized that, like, I'm not here to tune it down. I'm not here to be quieter.
Yeah.
I am here to be a bridge between that which is old and archaic and oppressive and patriarchal, and that which will be much more supportive. Perhaps right now it's idealistic, but it can be activated by folks like us who are disrupting the status quo and saying, this isn't working for most of us, right? And so that's what I'm super passionate about, and making space that it's not my one job to save all the whales, nor is it your one job or any specific person, but collectively, if we can get this mission together, right? If we can really activate what it means to be a femme forward leader, what it means to be a humanist versus, let's say, old school versions of feminism, right? Like, if we're really activating change and not just saying, oh, that really pissed me off the other day when I heard about that, but I feel so deflated by it, or I feel too busy doing all the other things that I don't have time and space to like deal. So I'm going to put my head in the sand. It's like, this is my call to pull your heads out of the sand. We can stand proud together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I love it. And you're so much about collaboration on the Backstage Pass, which I so appreciate, because it is such a feminine, leadership, forward thinking way. So it's so funny. It came back to me what I had like totally dropped there, but I was explaining to my son, that ideas that I have had in entrepreneurship have taken longer to get off the ground, like being kind of like a one-woman show. And, then I've been talking about feminine and masculine on the internet for 5 years. And I have really deep thoughts about that. Right. And then there's like, I try not to get angry about this, but then there's like, a white brother who's starting to say, pretty basic level shit about feminine masculine, and it has got like tens of thousands of followers, and who knows what kind of money they're making, and who knows what kind of investment capital they had in there. But I was telling my son, like, the patriarchy still exists even when I'm trying to bust out of it. Like, even when I'm trying to create something different and say, like, I'm not playing by those rules anymore. It's like, I've had so many people look at what I do. And over the years, I got this like, oh, that's cute vibe. Like, oh, look, Sarah Poet's trying to change the world, or like, impact in some way and make a living at it. And it was like a couple of years in of like super hard work where I realized, oh, patriarchy is still like, oh, look at what those, that cute femme founder. Yes, right. And so, just acknowledging that, because we know that that's true. We know that, like, women are still being taken less seriously in the startup spaces, in the world changing spaces. And so how are you finding that, to be true in this like massive, I see your vision and mission as like very big. I don't know how you, I don't know how it feels over there to be the one holding this, but like, you did not come to play small. Like, this is a very big thing that you've been doing. And so what kind of feedback have you been experiencing, all over the board?
Oh my gosh. I mean, so true. All of the truths on that. And I appreciate, as you were saying, your experiences in the first couple of years. I can now see, like, just anecdotally, women like you and a collective, like it's a small collective, but there are women that are like, I see what you're doing. I recognize it. I support it. And it's from, now I see your lived experience of a similar, like, and I know there's this, right? Like in any business that you start on your own, you're out there, like, it's like fire by baptism, like just run into the pack of wolves and try to make friends with those motherfuckers, right? Like, just go. And this particular type of business, what I'm doing and what you're doing, I like to often say, same mission, different copy, is so intense because, as you said, like, the patriarchy still exists, and like our cute little stitch and bitch or our cute little girl gang, it's like, okay, yeah, we're coming for you, mofos, because really, right, like, and I think about all of the women, all of the sizes, all of the ages, all of the colors under the sun over the last milieu who have pushed forward on, different journeys, on different walks, on different movements towards equality, right? Like, I think of what our great grandmothers and our great 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 grandmothers and their girlfriends would think about what we're doing. Like, we are prolific, and just because the internet, who by the way was started by men, who by the way is still run by men, wants to make us feel small and be like, oh, isn't that cute? Like, and women can still do that. Women can, Dr. Amanda Bell says, like, just putting pink on the patriarchy doesn't solve our problems of wage gap, of their laws on our body, things like that, right? So I really think it's important, a couple things, like I can share feedback, but I've been getting, but what I have needed, not just wanted, like needed to do, is like the feedback comes secondary, maybe even tertiary, like after the first part of me being like, this is what I am here to do.
Yeah.
And I have tried to quit. I have tried to get a job. I have tried to, like, be like, oh, I can't. But this project, like, I've been having these conversations since 2017, right? And then the opportunity during COVID to pause my then big business of production company working in large event space. Like, okay, but I don't want to keep, but it was like, whatever, source, universe, like whatever, it's just like, yo, you got to keep going. You got to keep going.
You got to figure out the new way. Yeah.
Right.
Me too.
Right.
It's like, you can't get out. Yeah.
Right. And it's like, and in some cases, just again, talking generally with business, like once you dig so far into the cave or into the hole or into the mountain or whatever, it's like, well, I don't want to turn around now because I might find light any minute. Yeah. And aside from that sort of, because that's like a little ego driven, but I ask myself pretty much every day, if not every week, depending on where I am in my cycle, is this ego driven or is this intuition driven? Right? Like, am I listening to what the world needs, or am I just like, I have to be the coolest bitch I know? And I'm like, how about both? Right? Like, how about both? Because
Yeah.
again, referencing the recent SCOTUS, passing of, nobody gets to choose if they have an abortion or not, right? It's like, okay, hold on a second. I have a lot more work to do. That means this platform is more viable than ever. I need to keep having these conversations. I want to connect with more women that have a similar mission, different copy, right? Because as thought leaders, as industry disruptors, the world needs us now more than ever, because it's just a little messy out there in the patriarchy. And we're not going home. We're not going home.
We're not, no. And like, it's like, we'll like cry on each other's shoulder, pat the back and be like, we got to keep going. Because like what, look what's happening. And I, these are like power grabs. These are power grabs as the world is changing. I like to remind us of that. Like,
yes.
There is a collective impact. The feminine is like actually energetically anchoring on the planet. And so these are power grabs. So we know that. And I just did a podcast, episode 123 is about like not looking externally first, right? Like if we orient externally first, we're going to be pissed. We're going to be tired because we're going to be fighting all the time. And so
constantly.
You have to go to that like internal why. I love what you're saying. Like if you go to yourself and I have the same, very similar conversations, like, am I insane or is this divinely guided? Like
I'm either the craziest,
craziest
bitch I know, or the biggest genius I know, right? It's like,
oh, so much both. And if you had, this conversation a couple of months ago would have had a very different tone with me, because I was like, I don't know what the fuck I want to do. I was telling people on here, like, I don't know what's going to happen to this podcast. I don't know.
I remember.
And I was like, riding this wave of feels, and I'm all about women optimizing our energy and using our energy in the most optimal ways rather than like burning ourselves out. And so I think I was a little bit burning myself out, did another like deep dive with human design, got clear on like, where am I using my energy, how and why, and how am I really supposed to be using my energy, optimized to the next level again. And then it was during Heartland, I teach this offering called Heartland that's like all about like, how do we actually turn from these patriarchal energetics into sovereign energetics? And I teach this, right, in this pretty esoteric offering. And so I was asking these questions kind of while I was in that offering. And just in the past, probably month, like 2 to 4 weeks, I had a deep, deep remembrance of, it wasn't just about my why, but it was like, spirit or my soul, like waking me the fuck back up. And I said to this person I've been dating, he's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, oh, I just remembered who the fuck I am. And
yes.
And I was like,
excuse me, hold my purse.
I know.
Hold my purse.
But like, that's what happened. I can't even explain it energetically. It was just like, I'm going to stay committed to my soul, my evolution. Yes, my mission, but like, how can I be, used for the biggest impact? Like, what is my soul here for? And I know that answer is actually like bigger than anything I have grokked so far. Like my vision so far has actually been a little bit like, small. But I was, getting my feet under me, so to speak. And so, I just have this, like, I may be the craziest bitch I know. And, raising a child like in this, unknown realm is, it may be crazy. It may be crazy.
But it's only, if I can interject, Sarah, it's only crazy when we compare it to normal. And remember when we heard all of the, let's get back to normal during COVID closures, it's like, okay, I said this a ton of time when I kept hearing, I was like, we're not going back to anything, right? We're going forward and whatever the new normal is. But I'm challenging that like notion of crazy based on, because I think the same, right? Like
Yeah.
okay, I'm running through the savings that I was like, you're supposed to save, like my business was working, pre-COVID, and I was saving, and it's like, okay, so yes, I would like to go back to that model versus like, oh, now I'm spending all of that savings and I'm leaning on, loans, and I'm applying for grants. This is not normal. People go to work and get paychecks, right? That's normal. But also, I some of my favorite lady bosses are like either just totally scraping by, like literally not even in business, right? They're just humans doing the best they can on barely any money, and also very affluent, like too many cars, too many clothes, too many, right? And both versions of these lady bosses share with me this moment right now of being like, I don't really know what I want to do with my time and energy. I just know I want to do different things than I've done in the past, because it doesn't feel like what I've been depositing into my savings account, whether it's real cash or, metaphorical, energetic, it's all currency, right? Like there's this sense. And when just circling back to your original question, it was like the feedback I've been hearing is like, I love conversations like we're having here. I love conversations where I can learn from other femme forward women, oriented people saying like, okay, cool. Cause I'm hearing you. First of all, it validates my experience. So I'm like, awesome. I see you. Great. And then I can learn from what their experience is, or just like take the pulse of like, oh, wow. So I'm feeling this, and I'm at this socioeconomic level, and this is my crazy out of the box living. Right. But this woman who has her multiple homes and her Roth IRA all saved, and all her boxes checked, is having a similar experience to me.
Yeah.
And to this woman who's like living in her family's busted camper in the middle of like nowhere, USA, to help her dying parents who have, you know what I mean? So it's just like, there's this collective. So what the fuck is crazy anyways? And what is, if we're here on this planet to do a thing, then maybe be crazy it is, because this old system, that's crazy too.
Not working. Right. Thank you. Absolutely. And I really love that you brought in the spectrum of like wealth and, acquisition. Cause I think that, in my opinion, oftentimes in the female entrepreneur space, there is a lot of pressure to, quickly build to a lot of income. And you and I know that, what kind of energy are we using to do that? And, sometimes it feels like what my soul came here on the planet to do was like wash out every patriarchal energetic. Like I'm a no to patriarchal energetics. And so when one comes up in my life, it's like, well, that's just not going to stand. And so I have to figure it out differently. And so I really love, there's a woman named Ronna Wilson who I interviewed on the podcast too, but she's the Conscious Money Guide. I really love her energy around money. People can check her out on Instagram too. And it was episode 111, which I remember because it was a fun number and we were talking about numbers. But Ronna's always talking about like, your money is going to go up and your money is going to go down. And it's not just about amassing wealth. Like we want resources in the hands of women, and we're going to fluctuate as we figure out how to do it differently. Yeah.
Well, and I'd love to hear your perspective of this, since, 5 years ago was about right when we did those gorgeous portraits of you, I must say, like,
yes.
I loved that color with your purple, with the flowers, like you're leaving your structured job, right?
Yeah.
And you're going into this changing, like you felt it from within. And, I think what I want to know from you is like, when you say, what kind of energy am I using building this? Like, right. Because oftentimes, and I've done this even with the Backstage, like, it's like, okay, cool. So we can do an event in Florida because it won't get canceled with COVID closures. They didn't have COVID there. And then we'll do an event online, and then we'll do an event in North Carolina. By then it should be okay in March. And then we'll do an event online, and then we'll do an event in Detroit. And then we'll do and it was like this was all in 3 months, y'all. Like that is some patriarchal, like, penis energy of like, keep going, right?
Go.
And then I was burning myself out. I was burning my team out, and all because I'm trying to do business differently. And I was like, hold on, this is exactly, I am becoming my own antithesis, right? Like I am maxing the fuck out for something that I want to change, which ultimately isn't changing me. And so these last 3 months since then, basically the half of April, May, and into June, and it's like, it feels weird, right? Like even today, what I'm doing is doing this interview with you, and I'm going to take another hot tub soak, and then I'm going to write, and I'm going to record my first podcast, and that's it.
Yeah.
And it's like,
that's
oh, I should
lot. Yeah, right.
That's the kind of crazy bitch I am, right? But because then I'm like, oh, I need to get in the inbox. I need to pay some invoices. I have 2 books to read. It's like, okay,
right, no.
But I'm actually trying to be the prophetess of doing things differently. And so I have to do it myself. And so how was that for you as you were coming in and out of the, I know your experience in academia was like super patriarchy. Like, what was that? Like shaking that, how, and the energetics of like, gotta build this thing.
Yeah, it's interesting because thank you so much for sharing that and for this question. I love talking about this. I love talking about this on this podcast and everywhere else. But it was very interesting. My pendulum swung to the feminine. So I went from this like hyper masculine emulation of like, gotta go. And then I was like, I swung to, oh, everything will magically work out. And like, I was not putting the structures in place. And that was like the first, 6 months. I was like, everything will just work out. The people will just come. And then, but like, I didn't have right relationship with my money. I didn't have right relationship with my structure, which is healthy masculine energetics. And so I see a lot of women kind of like run from the patriarchy and run from the push of the unhealthy masculine, what I would call like the hyper masculine energetic. And then it's like swings the pendulum to the feminine, but then like doesn't actually, know how to work with money. I see a lot of like female entrepreneurs who start with a vision who then struggle because of that energetic. So that's what I did. And then realized like, oh, I need to be with healthy masculine energetics and healthy feminine energetics in my money. But for anyone listening, so this is a huge part of my work. It's been a huge part of my struggle, I would say, or my learning and my hard learning has been around right relationship with money, because I had a ton of, and I think we do, like we have a ton of, programming or like misinformation. And I had dad trauma with my money. I actually have like dad trauma and mom trauma. And so I look at everything with feminine, masculine, like through that lens. And so it's like, well, how do I have right relationship in my inner masculine with money? And how do I have right relationship in my money with the feminine? But lately what I've been like, downloading and living is what happens when those two are in union in me in regards to money. And that I think is where we go into like a new paradigm of money. And it's so interesting, Rose, because my human design says that like I am here to help shift paradigms around like materials, resources, like how we exchange as a tribe. And I look at, what I've been putting out in the last couple of years, because like when I'd figure something out, I was like making things. So that's how I made Structure and Flow, which is like my planner system. And then, I downloaded Heartland, like from this esoteric experience that I had on a piece of land. And that's all about feminine resources. But like my system was guiding me, because I was just saying like, no patriarchal energetics, like these energetics of exchange that deplete the feminine, I am a no to. And not only that, I am interested in feminine replenishment on this planet, like replenishment. And so that's the energetic that I have been like living toward. So in many ways, my life is amazingly replenished. Like the number of hours that I work, the relationship that I have with my kiddo, the quality of man in my life, like where I live in the world, like these resources are so replenished. My inner resources really replenished, my health better than ever, and it's like, money is one aspect of our resources and it's an external resource. It's not, our internal resources are like first. So I love that you're taking care of yourself and you're like, I'm going to get in the hot tub. Maybe I'll read a book. Maybe I'll do a couple of things, but like my energy is valuable.
Well, and it could sound so like, oh, how bougie for her. What a nice thing for this white bitch on a Wednesday or whatever, Thursday afternoon to like do that. Right. But also feminine replenishment, not a cream, ladies. Like it's a way of being, right? Like we
have to.
And if we, and I think a lot of in the last week, we've seen, this woman, I shared it on my stories and I'll keep sharing it. She's calling for us to, as a response to the Roe v. Wade verdict, is to not spend any money from, the American holiday that is 4th of July through July 7th. And I think this is really interesting, right? Because this is an economic resource, money as an energy, right? That we get to be in charge of, right? Like I can say, do I spend this? Do I buy a $5 latte today or not? Right? Do I take that $5 and keep it for myself so that like I can store up a little bit of nuts and like do something like, right? We seem to get into these ways of being that like, well, don't talk to me till I have my latte and I have to do this. And then I did it. And it becomes this, like, this is the model of which I exist and I live by. So I can barely survive this thing called patriarchy, even though we're like, it's totally fine. It's like, but is it? Right. But
like, what is empowerment? And like, who's telling you what empowerment is? And so it's not empowerment for me to chase money and like be on a money chase by working my ass off and depleting myself. Like it is not the way I came to live.
Well, and you're just you're going to constantly burn out. Right. And I'm sorry to interject. I just have to share this one extreme mansplain experience of the utmost annoying eye-rolling patriarchy. I was, for one of the few times I had a job, I had a job, right? I worked for this company. Side note, they fired me not once, but twice. That's the kind of lady boss I am. I was like, okay, sir. But I was their like number one. I was doing all this like crazy good, like I was basically a photography company, but I had to sell the imagery, whatever. And I was doing really great. I was making them a ton of money. I was making myself a good amount of money and I was working my ass off, right? I was literally working my ass off because I came to make awesome imagery and make good money doing it. I'm not a starving artist. This was my whole shtick when I first like started working in photo and video. And anyways, I'll try to keep this tight, but ultimately when I finally get a meeting with the CFO, who'd been kind of blowing me off. He shows up to the meeting in sport shorts. I'm not sure that he's wearing any underwear. Like I was like, this is casual. I don't need this. Okay. And I'm like, so basically like I've worked for you guys for this long. Like I would really like to be able to make X money, and like, I make commission anyway. So it's no skin off your back to give me a bigger cut of the commission really. And also you're giving me more responsibility with this other brand. So I will need, a little bit more money and also some health insurance. And literally this mofo, do you want to know what he said to me? He was like, Rose, it's like 50 cents isn't enough. So you get $1. Then $1 is not enough. And then you need $1.50. And then $2 isn't enough. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, this guy's not giving me a raise. I was like, this is when I get fired the second time, because I was just like, yeah, no. So like if I'm working for $2 worth of labor, like not $2, but maybe felt like it.
The metaphor.
Then
I love that those are the numbers that he chose. Like he chose.
I know, not really... like pennies. Like if I throw another penny at you, right. you little minion. I was just like, I was like, I almost threw up. I was like, oh my God, really? I'm like, seriously? Anyway. And so the reason why I remember this story and that I share it now is because that motherfucker, like, thank you for that. Here, hold my purse. Because I am always going to level up, but I will not be chasing that damn 50 cents, right? Like I will figure out a way that if I need to have another 50 cents to continue on, I will find it and I will do it because I'm a resourceful kind of lady boss. But I'm not gonna like bust my ass and like kiss yours just so that I can get it. And that takes me back to this awesome image that you had shared once on social that had like a bunch of dogs ready to run, and then the cheetah laying back like, I'm not racing.
Bitch, I'm a cheetah.
I'm a cheetah. I don't race.
Why am I racing? Yeah.
And so like, what if, my question to all the listeners is like, what if we had cheetah energy just like 5% more every day? A little less dog energy, a little more cheetah energy, just like a little. We're not trying to say full script, because like maybe you got to be a dog now and again, right? You
gotta have right action, right? So this is where like masculine in its healthy expression is not patriarchal at all. It's not power over.
Right.
It listens to feminine. It's like with your deep wisdom that you gain because you gave yourself a rest, because you went deep, because you went to spirit, all of those things, like because you went to your body, which I'll talk about in just a minute, because you went to your body, here's the information that, that then the masculine is like, oh, now I can serve. That's the optimal expression of the masculine. And so in each of us, that's our action. Like our action has to be actually in service to the feminine and the family. Right. And so, you know, because it has to go from like exploitative to caring, to service. Right. And that's the world that I want to see. But I can't believe I'm bringing this up right now, but I'm going to do a podcast episode on the whole thing. So I'm just going to bring it up right now. But so I live a pretty soul-led, pretty esoteric life. And so I'm taking right action, but I am taking that information from like the feminine, from my mysticism. And so right at summer solstice, I won't go into details about my relationship, you know, like with a man, but like, you know, and I'll own completely, like we all have twisted energetics about how we will relate to men or how we will relate to, you know, systems of money. Like we were just saying, like, where do we give our energy as women and why are like, and what are we willing to put up with? And I talk with women a lot about this, like in order to secure our resources, in order to secure love, you know, like what are we willing to put up with kind of thing. And so I have some of those, I'll say like a collapsed energetic or, you know, I'm still ringing the patriarchy out of me. Right. And so right after, it was like summer solstice, like the day of summer solstice, my intuition is like, start yoni steaming. And I was like, oh, okay. Like I just heard it so clearly, like yoni steam. And so I like go to the garden, cut some oregano and basil, use some essential oils, like squat literally over grandmama's mixing bowl. Like I don't have a fancy setup, right? And then like you put the hot water, like you make a tea and then you're like, you steam in your vagina. Like I never even say the word yoni except for like people call this yoni steaming. And so I'm like, okay, but you know, otherwise I'm not really saying the word yoni. So anyway, so I'm like, okay, I'm following this intuition and I do this. This was like in the morning. And then I get in the car and on the way to the woods with my dog, I have the biggest energetic, it was like a smoke lifting off of me of this gross patriarchal energy. And I was like, I just cleansed some patriarchy out of me. Like it was
out of your pussy?
Like it steamed up through the pussy and then through the body. And I was really excited because like, okay, I'm just going to say, we put a lot of things in our pussy in the name of liberation, right? Like all kinds of, you know, gadgets, penises, like, you know, these things. Right. Steam, probably the most liberating thing I've ever experienced. So I know. So it like cleansed this layer of yuck out of my system. And at that moment, I was like, the next thing I heard Spirit say was 21-day practice, like 21-day spiritual practice. You're going to do this for 21 days and nothing else gets in you in these 21 days. And it has been one of the most profound experiences of my adult life. I'm on day 11.
Wow.
And it is like bringing a new level of sovereignty to my experience. Like, you know, anyone who's like, I got to cleanse that relationship out of me. I got to cleanse that patriarchy. I got to cleanse that energetic exchange out of me. And this was not in relation to like the man. I'm not even saying that, but it was like, you know, what am I still doing where I'm relaxing my sovereignty to, you know, ideas that I have that I won't be okay, or, you know, like things I have to do for love or recognition. Just, we all have those energetics. Like, as a result of patriarchy. So I'm doing a 21-day yoni steam practice, and every day it is like I am lighter and lighter and lighter.
Okay, so I think this is phenomenal, first of all. Second of all, like, I don't mean to make fun of it by suggesting this, so please take it as deep respect, but there's like the bucket challenge and all sorts of other like TikTok, but like I feel like there's no time now to have like the 21-day yoni challenge like on the gram or whatever, or on the Backstage Pass, like get like, I mean, not that like you would necessarily like, show the footage of the yoni steaming per se, but like, I mean, it just feels like reclaiming the word pussy generally, and anything to do with like our sovereign parts of pussy.
Yes.
And then making them feel, act, love, and just generally be more good for ourselves. Not forget, but I'm sure I also want to hear what happens on day 22. Like,
I don't know. I mean, because I'm just following my intuition purely, and like, I'm following something much bigger. Like, I am going deeper into the feminine because I was calling it forward, because I was calling full sovereignty forward. And yeah, it's just like the next level of my practice. By the way, I don't even know, someone was like, I don't think you're supposed to do that every day. and, and I was like, I don't know. I'm doing it because my spirit told me to. Like, I'm following my body and my intuition. And there was one day that I didn't seem, because like I did feel damp. Like, if people are familiar with like acupuncture, like I felt damp on the inside. And so I took one day where like I honored the practice without actually steaming. But then the next day I was like, I was ready for it. And so it's quite powerful. And I'm looking at the timing of that. And that's like, we had Father's Day, we had summer solstice, and we have this Roe v. Wade thing. And I'm like, my pussy has never been more sovereign. My feminine energy has never been more sovereign.
I want that to be a t-shirt, Sarah. I want that to be a t-shirt. My pussy has never been done.
Yeah, you make the
or maybe it's just sovereign pussy, and then on the back, forever.
Yeah. And like, to explain this to a man, to this partner, I was like, I don't know why I'm doing what she's telling me to do. And like, that's enough. Like, there's no other explanation needed, and he's like, okay, like, I hear it. Okay. So yeah, we'll do a podcast episode on that. I'm bringing back, the woman who I did a podcast episode on yoni steaming. I think it was episode 40, like back from the vaults, because this will be 125. And so, that's already out there. But when you do it, it's like a shamanic experience. It's pretty incredible.
I think I did it once at like King Spa or Spa Katso, when it was like crazy European or Korean, like the like Korean grandma is like doting on you. You like sit in a tent, and I was like, it felt I was like, this is clusterfuck. Like, if it's just for my putang, like, why do I gotta like be in a Ziploc like up to here? Like, this it wasn't a Ziploc. But it was like, seriously, I was like, so I was like, this is, I hated it. But I would totally like, one of my friends, her man made her like a custom yoni steam where like she sits on this, like, it looks like a throne. It looks like a damn throne.
That's what we all need.
Yeah. And then she just sits on, she's like, I can sit right now and just like, have a glass of wine and like be da. I'm like, okay, that's a whole nother.
It's so good for you. It's like good for the digestion, good, but being as sensitive to energy as I am, like, I'm bringing it, kind of like up and through. So energetically, like, you bring it up, and then when it doesn't want to go, like, the steam is not actually going through my whole body, but energetically it's going through my whole body, and it's just like cleansing everything. But I'm waking up in the morning feeling so much lighter. Like, this is phenomenal sovereignty practice. So
I love it. Okay. Well, I'm totally good. So you're on 11.
Day 11.
July 10th, I'm going to say.
What's
happening on day 22.
Yep. Yeah. Like, all, working on like receptivity, so I think I brought that up to say, I sense, and this is true for my life, and usually I'm channeling something for the collective while I'm like tuning in on these things, but there's this, sacred feminine, like, likes to say that, the womb is a creative space, right? So the more we are claiming back, like, the woman's body and these like, womb parts, yes, there's more creative energy, right? And like, we need healthy feminine, healthy masculine, like, we need them both. And so the thing that I am like beginning to really tune into through this practice with like full, sovereignty, nothing else coming in my body, like, during this practice, is that my womb is like starting to spark. It's like speaking up, and it's talking about like feminine creativity in a new way. And then like real, gestation and real like bringing money through in a new way, like in a high integrity way. So anyway, yeah, I'll keep you posted on that, but thanks for letting me kind of like go down that road.
Yeah, totally. I'm super interested to hear more about it. And I think I'm like, as you were saying that, I was like, I wonder if I could figure out, I'm like campy as fuck up here, right? Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't have a garlic mincer. And I'm like, like you come up with things
Yeah.
when you're camping. I'm like, I probably can't come up with my very first DIY yoni steam in the woods. But when I get back to city mouse mode, I might be like, girl.
Yeah, right. I know. I think I'm going to get one of those chairs. All right. So I want to come back to, and maybe this will be how we wrap up, but we'll see where the conversation goes. No rush. I want to come back to disruption. So I was having a very important, very sweet conversation with a woman yesterday. And this just goes like big love to all the women hearts out there, right? Because I hear a lot from, clients and just women that I want to make a move, but I don't know what kind of disruption it will cause. And I don't want to hurt my family. And so like, women wanting to change their lives, what I would say, like following that sacred remembering path or following their truth and like, coming into their purpose. And they're saying, but I don't want to cause disruption to, my children, my family, like, so let's go there. And, I worked with her tender heart through that conversation. But it was interesting that word yesterday was like, I don't want to disrupt that. And then here today, we're talking about disruption. And it's like, how do we embrace disruption? And this kind of goes back to what we were saying about like the crazy, or like whatever we could call it. But yeah, let's go into disruption.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna like again paint that picture of the variety of experiences as a woman, right? Like as a female oriented person that could have, lots of cash money in the bank, little cash money in the bank, have a corporate job, not have a corporate job, have 8 jobs, have 3 side hustles, right? Like our experience as a woman can be very varied, right? And so personally for me, my experience is that if I don't disrupt things, like I don't know what I'm doing. Like ever since like I can track it from like grade school, I was always in the principal's office because they had, first of all, my mom sent us to Christian day school because it was cheaper if we joined this church to go to private school than anything else. And half of my family is Jewish, right? And we were like reading catechism and then having science class. So I'd be like, I have a question. I was disrupting. I was naturally disruptive. Like they didn't like it. It was ruining the day because I was always like disrupting, right? I tend to think that was helpful because in learning lessons, like it's like, well, let's have more perspectives. But teachers, they felt otherwise. And principals were like, oh, it's you again, right? But within my makeup, like that's just the kind of student I was, much to my family's dismay. And then again in high school, same kind of experience, a little different audience, right? Public high school is slightly different than private school, but same kind of, I would get in trouble because I was disrupting, right? And on through college, I figured out where I could disrupt most peacefully, so to speak. And now, in this chapter of my life, it's like, okay, I'm not married. I don't have children. I'm taking a huge loan and putting like fiscal responsibility on the line to disrupt something. If that doesn't work, whose life am I bothering? Really just mine, and I could figure it out, right? And so I just say that all that, everybody's version of what disrupting is going to be a little bit different, right? But what can each of us do? Like back to the question before is like, what can we each do 5% more to be a little more like cheetah energy, right? Like I think all of us, all humans, we acquiesce and often do things that aren't necessarily in our highest interest. My highest interest right now is to be sure that like I'm using all of my privilege to dismantle old ways that are oppressive and change them, and not just have a thing that's like, I'm going to bitch about this because I'm so sick and tired of it, but to actually build something different, right? And so because I have the position I have right now, I'm happy to be doing the heavy lifting so that other women who don't have that much free time or are like, I would, except for like I got 4 kids right now and I got to feed them. And I also have to keep this flywheel going in the patriarchy so that I have money to feed these kids so that they can go and maybe be better leaders. And then I could catch up, right? Because there's different, we're all at different places. And so it's just out of curiosity, like disrupting what's even right here versus like the concentric circles. Because then what happens, like back to the reference with your son, is like you're with those kinds of conversations with him, you're disrupting the narrative that boys will be boys, or that this is just the world we live in. And so I'm this like freak of a mother that's doing things differently. Like you're normalizing what you're doing in having conversations with your kid, right? And there's other examples of that. One time when we had a Lady Boss Lounge panel back in 2018, like I said, we've been having these conversations for years in different cities, right? So now we just have the platform to support them. But we were doing a conversation at Soho House in Chicago, and this woman came up to me like 2 days later, because they have like a co-working space also. And she was like, hey, I just want to say, like, the conversation that we had the other day was so inspiring to me that I actually went to work yesterday and I had a conversation with my boss who I'd never talked to, and like asked if I could have a little bit longer conversation about XYZ, right? That disrupted that person's regular 9 to 5, that disrupted her boss's 9 to 5. And now they're going to have a different relationship as a result. And hopefully that lady boss will have a different experience at work as a result. And shoot, that was, I don't know what, 7 years ago. So hopefully she's got a whole different experience as a result of those little ripples of disruption that just came from that conversation. So I think a lot of times we think that like, in order to change things, we have to like make this tsunami or cataclysmic or like elephant in the room thing happen today. And when in fact, I think the work that you're doing, the work that I'm doing, and the work that a ton of the thought leaders on the Backstage Pass are doing is to just push the needle every day a little bit. And you know, I mean, I'm the bitch that wants to kick the damn needle. I'm just like, yeah, run the ball. Whoa, let's go hold my purse. Like just really some of that masculine energy. And I'm also learning that if I'm going to keep this thing going forward and I'm going to keep disrupting, maybe at a high level for those who have to be at a more moderate because they don't want to flip the family script today, maybe in a year or two. But like if we put our own sovereignty, I can never say this word.
Sovereignty.
Sovereignty.
Yeah.
Sovereignty.
Sovereignty.
Yes, I can say sovereign. Yeah. Sovereignty. If we're going to put that forward, like before the latte, maybe we want the fucking latte, buy the latte, you know, but maybe like, you know, is there a way that we can just say like, why am I doing this? Am I doing this because I like it? Am I doing this because I care? Am I doing this to keep somebody else safe? Or am I just doing this because I'm supposed to do this thing? Right. And last thing I'll say on that is like, as we know full well from the Great Resignation, right? Like that is largely led by women saying like, not running that race. That's Cheetah is not running that race. Right.
Not doing it. Yeah. We need a new game. Yeah.
We need a new game. We need it. Let's fuck the game. We need a new organization that doesn't make living a game and a struggle to get what we need as for any human, right? And everybody has their struggles, but the game is busted.
Yeah, game is busted. We need new structure, new integrity. I love that. And you know, to use some of the language that I use here on the podcast, it's like aligning to you. Right? Like I think sometimes when we've alluded to this throughout this conversation, but thinking that the disruption has to be the fighting, like has to be fighting everything else. And like what you're doing is you're building an alternative. I'm building a community where women waking up have each other, you know? And so, and I want to talk more about what it is you are building before we close. And so it's like aligning to that intuition that is coming through you, that passion, that purpose that is so naturally coming through you. And that's also how we will succeed. Like, I have no doubt that what you're building will succeed. I have no doubt that what I'm building will succeed because like, it's got, you know, the source in it. It's got God in it, like what the universe in it, whatever you call it. It's like the truth of our soul working through us saying like, you know, go for it. Like you are the one who will do this. You know, so the ego might be like, I am crazy. This is crazy. But, you know, we would not have the calling, the intuition to do it. and to disrupt, I think, if it wasn't ours to do.
Mm-hmm.
And so I love that. Like wherever any woman is on her journey, when she has a truth inside of herself, she knows what the truth inside of herself is. She hears it.
Well, and wouldn't you argue, Sarah, that just sorry to interject, but that when we feel that, right, like as probably as humans, but I know from my experience as a woman, when I feel the aversion, like it's like this isn't of service to me, and then yet do the damn thing that I don't want to do, then I resent that person and myself. And like, so think of that. Sorry, like I don't want to put any more guilt, but like the consideration of like sometimes when we keep doing the things that we don't want to do because we don't want to disrupt, what are the effects of that on ourselves, on our kids, on our family, on the world, if we're like, fuck that, I don't want to do that, but I still do it, right? Like, so how can we just not do the things that make us resent ourselves and other people?
I love that.
Right?
I love that. Honestly, I think that that's the energy that I'm steaming out of my pussy. Like
resentment.
I think it's
resentment steam. Yes.
Well, and it's like, you know, I'm just, you know, clear. Like I'm just clear. And it's like, I will listen to myself from here on out. Like everything that, you know, like you said, like when it doesn't work out, we knew it in the first place. Like, you know, I was overriding something of my truth in the first place. And so, all about that next level of alignment. So Rose, tell us, we mentioned the Backstage Pass, but like, tell us what you're building. You're building an alternative social media.
Yes. One day it'll just be called social media, but
yeah, right.
You know, we have like, you know, female doctors and female lawyers. It's like, yeah, we're just doctors and lawyers, you know, but that's where we are because we're in the patriarchy and we still have to have like the other thing. And this is the other, there are lots of groundswell movements of women doing awesome things. And it's important for me that, and I think important for us that we bring all of these different siloed movements together. And so what we're building on the Backstage Pass is essentially, you know, a femme forward Facebook. It's a lady boss LinkedIn. It's a matriarchal MySpace. I know that dates me a little bit. I'm a vintage millennial. But you know, I've been building this thing for as far as in the internet, right? The tech piece of this since last May 2021. And so we're just over a year old, and actually technically we launched in fall. So we're maybe a little less than a year old. But as far as the platform being up and live, it is. You can go to lbibackstagepass.com to learn more how you can be a part of the community. And essentially what we're doing is we're trying to bring together all of these thought leaders, all of these industry disruptors, even if you're just industry disrupting light, right? Even if you're like,
interested.
Curious.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I will say when we initially launched, we were like, okay, women in business. We already know like women in business are tenacious. We go out there, we put our mouth on, you know, or we put our money where our mouth is. We put it all on the line. We're kind of like, But also what I've noticed in the last year is us small business owners, like coming back from COVID closures, like we got a lot of other shit to do besides like fix all the broken things. And so we've cast a slightly wider net saying, okay, business ladies, like we got you, come back and have part of the conversation. If, you know, you want to learn how to start your podcast, check this out. You want to be featured on a podcast. You want to figure out where you can get funding. Girl, I have got like the gold on access to resources when it comes to grants and even some small interest loans and other ways of getting funded. We have conversations on bootstrapping versus crowdsourcing. If you should look at getting an angel investor, or maybe you should just stick with friends and family for a little bit. Just conversations about these things that are helpful for anyone who's just really interested in not sticking where they're at in their own business, working for other people, and just generally pushing the needle forward on progress. We have a lot of information about civic engagement, not only like what's happening in the midterms, but where you can go to register, you know, sort of politicking 101, just simple steps on how you can engage, even if that means just following a new blog or listening to a new podcast. We have all these recommendations. So if you think about it, it's like, no small feat, right? Like the internet is somewhere you can go and find anything, right? But what we are creating in the Backstage Pass is a very intentional, safe, and inclusive space that supports specifically female leaders, right? And so like when I say safe, I mean, you're not going to hear like your racist Uncle Jerry ranting off about like such and such this, or your cousin's fifth, you know, dirty diaper from her baby today, or like whatever, right? Like this
and
is really
you're not going to be told that you're cute. You're going to be taken seriously.
right. Like actually, Like,
Uh-huh.
hey, like and to riff off of that, like we have a bookkeeper, a badass bookkeeper on the mall area of the Backstage Pass where she's offering her services. People have said like, well, yeah, I'm trying to find a new accountant that doesn't patronize me. We've got one right there, right? Like we have
Yes.
Sarah's courses listed there, the structure and flow of the masculine and feminine. We have Dr. Jackie, who is a marriage counselor who works with, entrepreneurs specifically because our divorce rate is a little higher just as a result of our tenacity to go out there in the world. And so it's a pretty robust platform for sure. There's a lot of information. We've tried to keep it really clean so it's not overwhelming because we also know that the internet is a noisy place. But the one thing that is really the most exciting thing to me about what we're building is that we have the opportunity to do these pop-up events in person that basically speak to the conversations that we have on the backstage, literally 24/7. But then we get to say, hey girl, get our headshots taken together, toast, and have an in-person conversation in real life, and then maintain the momentum of that conversation on the platform. Because a lot of times when I've gone to things in person, I'm like, oh, this is awesome. And then I go back to my regular life and I'm like, but I want that awesomeness and I want that community. And I want to know, who was that woman in the blue dress, or who was that bookkeeper that doesn't patronize, her clients, right? And it's like, it's literally a hub, right? And so that's what we're building. And of course, I'm always so thrilled of your engagement and your participation. It really means the world to have people like see the mission. I heard someone the other day say, oh my God, it's like you went inside my brain and you took this little chunk that I haven't even been able to translate for myself into words, and you put it into a platform where I feel safe and I feel inspired. And I was like, say it again for the people in the back, like, oh my God, yes, because to your point earlier, it's like, am I totally insane, or is this like the best idea ever?
Right. Right.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll say a couple of things about that as, in my experience, and encourage people to go back there, go backstage. It feels good. Like you're using Mighty Networks. I'm also using Mighty Networks for Sacred Remembering. I like Mighty Networks. Female founder, just like the energy is so much cleaner than the FB. I don't even say it. Just such a great platform, like energetically clean, the Mighty Networks in general. And then the community feels good, and like why you're there. And I think I'm experiencing this too. Like it's a little bit difficult to get people to trust that online community. Like, no, really, you can bring yourself here. Really, you can like share anything out. And in this community, you're going to be lifted up. And as women, we're still healing from like, can I trust this sister next to me? Can I not trust this sister? And so it's like what you and I are building are places that it's like, yes, we're trusting one another. We're lifting one another up. It's like, oh, you need a photographer? My friend Rose, oh, you're looking at bookkeeping. There's Allie, and so building networks of women. And I wanted to say this the other night at Women in Wine, it's like at the end of Women in Wine, everybody kind of like hands out their business card, or people donate something. And then there's like this giveaway. Like, okay, here's a half an hour of my service, right? And I just like, I was driving home and I wanted to be like, okay, next time at Women in Wine, I'm just going to stand up and I'm going to say, what do we all do? Now go tell like 5 people about it, right? Like that's what we need to be doing as women, not like, oh, look at Rose, she's building something that's really cute, right? In that patriarchal kind of patronizing way, but be like, no, you would love this. You're starting a business, like get on back here. Like you're a disruptor, get on back here, or get into this, right? Like come on in. And so, we need to be actually referring women business. Does everyone hear that out there? Everyone listening, like actually refer women business and stop being like, oh, she's doing that. She's building that. Like, we're doing this together. Like we all have to do it together. 1,000%. Yeah.
Yes. And even if that, I mean, and again, acknowledging how busy, because maybe I anticipate someone hearing that being like, girl, but you just do not know how busy I am, or how overworked, or how whatever. Right. And recognize, and is it possible for you to somewhere in your day, like, don't go on Facebook for 5 minutes and come backstage. Don't go on Instagram for 5 minutes and text your girlfriend and say, like, I don't have time to get on this app, but like, this thing that Sarah's doing is incredible for us, right? It's not just like, oh, that's so cute. And I have to tell you in closing, like, that person I was dating recently did a couple mansplaining. Oh, you're so cute, in regards to not so much the platform. Oh, there was a little mansplaining in the platform, but he learned quickly. I was like, do not mansplain my platform.
No.
But like, there was a few moments of other, like, you're so cute. And I was like, Lady Boss does not like that patronizing.
No.
And then, you know, it's like, so like, how do we maintain the momentum of like strong and bold and forceful without just being like, shut the fuck up with that and cut it out with that and stop patronizing me all, because like that becomes its own sort of like oppression in our own self, right? So we just have to like, we gotta yoni steam it out, girl.
I know. Well, this is why this is why I teach energy sovereignty. And I do want to lift up this beautiful man in my life who is like, you are courageous. How can I support you? You know, and when I'm like 21 day yoni steam, he's like honored. So they're out there, women. Yes. Yeah. They can learn to lift us up. And the more sovereign we are in our energy, you know, the less we have to like,
and then it's like,
or fight. It's like, oh, you know, they'll get it. They will get it because they will feel the energy and the sovereignty. And so I think we learn that, you know, with other women, we learn it together. Like, we're doing it, cleansing the patriarchy out of us and out of our systems and our platforms. So
yes, ma'am.
Rose Kaz, I don't want this to end.
This is great. Thank you for having me. I always love our talks. Just love it. It's whether we're having coffee or we're at an event or we get to dish on the Zoom. It's always a pleasure to be in, you know, good sisterhood and making change and being a disruptor. And I like to say being a little bit of a shit stirring the shit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being here. It's awesome.
Thrilled.
As usual.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. All right.